Hi, Crime Junkie jury. I'm Lauren Conlin with your daily Diddy Digest. And we just finished day 13, week 3 of the United States versus Sean Combs. And today we finished the direct testimony of former assistant and director of development of Revolt TV, Mia, who is going by a pseudonym. She also is very close with Cassie to this day, described the two of them like sisters. So just to finish off her direct testimony this morning, Mia talked about an incident that occurred in South Africa when Cassie and Diddy were on again, off again, and she started to date Michael B. Jordan. Many of you know about this, but we heard from Mia about what she experienced during this whole ordeal, which was Diddy very irate over in the United States, trying to get a hold of Cassie when he found out that she was upset about this video or picture of he and Gina that surfaced because they were at this music festival. I think I detailed a little bit of that in the last video. And Cassie started talking to Michael B. Jordan. So Diddy's very irate and he's calling Cassie. She answered maybe once or twice, but then she kind of stopped answering him. She may have blocked him. And then Diddy starts calling Mia. And not only that, but when Mia wouldn't answer because she said that she was sleeping, I mean, she testified that she would wake up to 40 missed calls sometimes. She started getting calls from Christina Coram, who was his chief of staff. And Christina Coram was like, you need to call him. You need to figure this out. Like, you could kind of tell that Coram was in a weird spot too, that maybe Diddy was breathing down her neck. So she felt strange. But Mia testified that, again, she'd be sleeping. She'd wake up to so many missed calls. And we saw these WhatsApp messages from her to Christina and also emails between her, Mia, and Diddy, where she's like, I'm not ignoring you. You're calling when I'm sleeping. I didn't hear it. And she also said, she testified she felt like she was in this really tough situation because when she didn't answer Diddy's phone call, he'd say, forget it. We're through. We're over. Essentially, like, you're not going to work here anymore. And then finally she got a text message from him. I think it was pretty close to when she was supposed to leave South Africa, but he texted her and he said that, okay, I have it all written down. He said, call me now, F it all, I'ma tell everything. And when he said, I'm going to tell everything, Mia said she took that as he was going to tell about their sexual encounters, which Mia has said these encounters were actually sexual assaults, and Diddy has now claimed that they are consensual through his defense attorney during cross-examination. So he said, call me now, F it all, I'm gonna tell everything, don't speak to me, F her, meaning Cassie. And then he said, F ABC and all the lawyers, let's go to war. We were wondering what that meant, and Mia clarified that Revolt TV that she was a part of, she had just sold a comedic script to ABC, and it was kind of a big deal, and they signed a contract. There was a press release, and she was very excited and proud of this, and Diddy threatened to take it away if she didn't call. So we heard about this incident, and then we heard about another incident. I mean, we heard about a bunch where basically he would scream at her, demean her, humiliate her about something so trivial, like she didn't put out the right workout outfits that he wanted on one occasion, and he freaked out at her, and she tried to explain, and then he suspended her without pay for 5 days. We actually saw that email. And then the other thing that I thought was a pretty big deal today, at the end of the direct examination, Mia testified that in 2023, November of 2023, about maybe a week or a few days after Cassie's civil suit dropped, she got a text from D-Rock, who is one of Diddy's security guards or security. And she said that she wasn't sure that he still worked for Diddy. She said he was pretty sure, or she was pretty sure he went off on his own. He had a clothing company he was working on, but she was excited to hear from him. And he just said, hey, Mia, what's up? And she wrote back. And by the way, all of her texts, she seems very sweet. She uses a lot of emojis, exclamation points. And she just said, hey, D-Rock, like, I'm so excited to see you, with like lots of O's, or hear from you with lots of exclamation points. And then he wrote, it's so crazy what's going on with Puff. And he said, he and Cassie just fought like a regular couple or like any other couple. And then Mia said that she's like, okay, something's wrong here. I feel like something is not right because D-Rock witnessed everything that I witnessed and even stepped in to help Cassie at certain points. So why would he be saying this? And then she said something back. I don't know. It was kind of, throwaway. And she kind of said, where are you? And then she said she panicked when he said, oh, I just landed in Miami. I'm helping one of Puffy's kids with something. And I'm sorry, I refer to him as Diddy, Puffy, Sean Combs. Hopefully you guys know who I'm talking about by now. So she didn't answer. And then he kind of wrote back again and said, Diddy wants to talk to you. And she's like, okay. And then she described that when Diddy called her, she had this reaction where she threw her phone on the couch and ran out of her apartment. She was just so disturbed. So D-Rock hit her up again. She didn't respond. And then he texted her again, kind of annoyed, being like, Mia, I can't believe you're blowing me off like this. So she finally wrote back and said, I called Diddy back because he called me. I missed his call. I didn't hear my phone. You could tell what she was doing. I felt kind of bad for her. And she said, I called him back, but he didn't answer. So I left it at that. And then she testified she didn't actually call him back. She wanted nothing to do with anything. And that was that for now, until a few days later, she gets a text from D-Rock that said, how can I send you a gift? And she testified when asked by the government, what did you think was this gift? What do you think he meant by this? And she said, money. And then she said she wrote back and said, no, I'm good. I am in debt, but I'm good. I don't want your money. Or she didn't say money. I don't need a gift. I don't need anything. And D-Rock said back to her, why can't I just send my sister a gift? She testified that they refer to themselves as brother and sister, like one big family, which also comes up with the defense a lot as well. Oh, you're one big family. You all loved each other. Puff created this family environment. So after that text where she kind of said, no, thank you, D-Rock didn't reach out to her again. But a few months later, in February of 2024, she gets a text from Diddy. The first text just said, hey, Mia, can we talk? Can we catch up? Love. That was it. She didn't respond. And then about 5 days later, he texted again and he said, look, you were my right hand for a really long time, 2009, by the way, to 2017. And he said, I just need you to jog my memory a bit. And then he wrote, I need to be, and this part I'm paraphrasing because I couldn't write it fast enough, but he said, I need to be reminded of who was around me during a specific time period. And then he said, I hope you're well, blah, 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 love. And that was it. She never heard from him again. And I thought that was pretty big, specifically the D-Rock text and the Diddy text. I think they're really trying to tie this with the RICO charge on the indictment. So that's pretty much how the direct testimony ended. Oh, it ended with some pretty big announcement by Mia when asked where she works now. And she said, I don't work. And they asked why. And she said, because I have been diagnosed with post-traumatic stress in the work environment because of what I dealt with at the hands of Sean Combs. So that is specifically how they ended things. Now, Brian Steele did the cross-examination and he really focused on a couple things. Well, first of all, the defense handed the jury binders, and in the binders, they had the exhibits that he put up on the screen for the first half of the morning, and then the second half there was a binder that there's two binders they handed out to each or to the jurors to share. And in that binder was a scrapbook that Mia had made for Diddy's 45th birthday. So I'll get into that, but we first saw a series of Instagram photos that Mia had on her personal Instagram page from, let's say, 2013 up until 2016. And one of the big points that Steele kept hammering was Mia's birthday posts to Diddy. Whenever it was his birthday, she would do these elaborate birthday posts saying how much she loved him, and not just on his birthday. She seemed like a very loving person. I mentioned that. She's always saying, love you. And all her posts would be like, he's so inspirational. You're the most inspirational man. I'm so lucky to have you. But the birthday posts were important because she testified that that was the first time on his 40th birthday in 2009 that he sexually assaulted her, put her up against a wall, kissed her, and touched her, and then inferred that she was drugged. And this also came up with Brian Steele because she talked about, not really remembering certain things, which again inferred that she was drugged. So Steele would ask, like, you're saying all these loving things to this man who traumatized you for the first time 5 years earlier, let's say, on this day, his birthday, November 4th. So, why are you said you couldn't get this out of your mind. It was so traumatizing. Why are you doing these elaborate birthday posts on a day that traumatized you? And, Mia would say things, she seemed like she was very informed because she did talk a lot about her therapist, and she would answer questions like that. And she would say, a victim advocate would know why I did that. Or she would say, I'm not a therapist or a doctor, but there's a reason that abuse survivors do things like this. And she used the term survivors, and she would say, I'm not a doctor. So yeah, he really hammered on that. Why did you say he's so wonderful on this specific day when it was so traumatizing to you? And then he asked her point blank, like, didn't you say that, he drugged you and assaulted you? And she's like, I never used the word drugged. And then she didn't. And Steele went into the whole, well, you did say that alcohol wouldn't affect you a certain way when you came to, like, what did you mean by that? And then she said, well, yeah, I guess it's a possibility that he did drug me. So she brought that up. And she also talked about, and this was something in direct that I just left out. She also spoke about getting a settlement from Diddy when she left the company, the Revolt Film Company and Bad Boy, in 2016 or 2017, excuse me, because Diddy wanted to get rid of Revolt TV. He wasn't into it. And she said that she hired an employment lawyer to collect severance, maybe some things she was owed on past projects. And Diddy was like, I'm so betrayed. You betrayed me by hiring a lawyer. And she was like, your company told me to. Like, Bad Boy execs told me to, And she was awarded $400,000, but she said she only got $200,000 of it because the other half went to her lawyers. Okay. So again, many Instagram posts. We actually saw a post of Meek Mill, The Game, Cassie, Diddy, and some other people in a hot tub with bikinis on, and so we saw that, and we saw just a loving post or a loving caption towards Diddy about how much fun they all have. And she would say, yeah, the highs were high and the lows were low. We also saw, when I talked about the other day, if you're watching all these videos, the plates with the drugs on them, the white powder that I said was on a tour bus, that was a tour bus that they had at Burning Man. And so she testified that was a horrible experience for her at Burning Man because he forced her to do drugs. Well, the defense showed us a picture from them multiple years at Burning Man where she would caption how much fun it was, and she would say, take me back, etc. And they would say, why would you do that when you were so traumatized? And I thought she had a good answer. She said, at this point in time, Instagram was a place where people really lied about their life. You wanted everyone to think how great your life was, which is true. I mean, now I feel like people are being more honest and open on Instagram when they have problems. But she's totally right. In 2013, you're not about to be like, my life is, it was different. I thought that was solid. But, so yeah, we saw a picture of one specific birthday post that Steele pointed out where Diddy was dressed in like some kind of costume, and he was kind of grabbing his groin, and Steele was kind of like, you picked out a picture of your abuser holding his groin like that. Why would you do that? I feel like I saw a juror, a woman, kind of smirk a little bit at that. It could have been the face she was making. I watched her throughout the afternoon after that smirk, or so I thought. And she kind of just had that face on the whole time. So I'm going to watch her again next week to see if she continues. But the other jurors during all of this, the cross-examination specifically with all of these photos, they were looking at them pretty intently. One guy looked a little perplexed, but that's really all I could gather from them. Then we got to the scrapbook, which essentially was uh, Mia put together articles, magazine articles, and this really nice cover note for Diddy for his 45th birthday. The articles were from 1991 to 1999. And the reason that the jurors were given like a scrapbook and this wasn't admitted into evidence officially was because the government is still kind of arguing that they don't need to see everything in the scrapbook because there are articles relating to Biggie's murder where there was a quote where Diddy said something along the lines of, the feds aren't investigating his murder, they're looking at us for other things. And so they're like, we don't want that into evidence, but it's fair that the jury should see the scrapbook because the defense is trying to show that Mia truly cared about Diddy, and that's why she did something like this, which looked very detailed and nice and kind. And so again, when asked, why would you do something like this for this man who you say ruined your life, traumatized you? And she's like, it's just, I'm a nice person. I'm a people pleaser. This is what trauma does. So she had a lot of answers like that. And then I feel like this was just a moment out of nowhere. The sexual assaults came up, and out of nowhere, really, Steele seemed to kind of jump or get a little bit louder at her. And he just said something like, well, isn't it true that you lied and that this was consensual? Those were consensual. And she was very taken aback, and she just said, excuse me, no, I have never lied. And she said something about she said that something about being a sexual assault survivor. That was part of her answer. And Brian Steele said, well, what if you weren't sexually assaulted or something like that? And it was like, objection. It was kind of a big deal. So he toned it down after that, but it seemed very clear that Diddy believed this was consensual based on his multiple head shakes yesterday and today when this came up. And Mia is very certain that every time that she was with Diddy sexually, she did not want to be. And she also testified that there were, quote, many times or so many times that this happened that she couldn't really remember. Again, alluding to possibly being drugged. But that was the extent of the cross today, and we'll finish her cross on Monday. And we don't have a witness list, but I will be sure to tell you who the upcoming witnesses are on Monday, because we usually get some answers by then at the end of the day. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this or not enjoyed. That's probably the wrong word. I hope this was informative for you, the Daily Diddy Digest, and I hope that everybody has a really great weekend.